Birthday's canceled, don't come. My name's Frank Thompson. I'm 73 years old. And those 5 words from my daughter-in-law just hit me like a punch to the gut. After 8 years of never missing my granddaughter Emma's birthday. After raising 3 kids mostly on my own. After working 2 jobs for 20 years to give my family everything they needed. This is what I get. Listen up, because this story's gonna mess with your head. And comment down there when it's over. Tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes. And let me know what city you're hearing this from out there in this big world. It was a Tuesday afternoon when that phone rang. I was sitting in my old recliner, the same one I've had for 15 years, watching the news and thinking about what present I should get Emma for her 8th birthday that weekend. That little girl means everything to me, you know? She's got these bright blue eyes that light up when she sees her grandpa, and she always runs to me with her arms wide open. The phone's ringtone cut through my thoughts. Rebecca's name showed up on the caller ID. Now, my daughter-in-law doesn't call me often. Usually it's my son Michael who handles the family communications. So when I saw her name, I figured maybe she needed help with party planning or something. "Hello, Rebecca," I said, settling back in my chair. Her voice was different. Cold. Not the usual polite tone she uses with me. "Frank, I'm calling about Emma's birthday party this Saturday." I perked up, ready to hear about what I could bring or how I could help. "Oh yeah, what time should I be there? I already got her present wrapped and birthday's canceled, don't come." Just like that. No explanation. No sorry, Frank. No, maybe we can reschedule. Just 5 words that felt like a slap across the face. I sat there for a moment, trying to process what I just heard. "Cancelled? What do you mean cancelled? Is Emma okay? Is she sick?" "She's fine," Rebecca said quickly. "We just decided not to do anything this year. Now I've been around long enough to know when someone's lying to me. My late wife Martha used to say I had a 6th sense about that kind of thing. And everything about this phone call felt wrong." Rebecca's tone, her rush to get off the phone, the way she said Emma was fine, but they weren't having a party. "Well, maybe I could just stop by and see her then," I suggested. "Give her the present, wish her happy birthday." "No." The word came out sharp like a knife. "Frank, we're not having visitors this weekend. We just want to keep it quiet this year." Keep it quiet. What kind of parent keeps their child's 8th birthday quiet? Emma had been talking about this party for weeks. Last time I saw her at the grocery store, she was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement, telling me about the decorations she wanted, the cake flavor she picked out. "Rebecca, I don't understand. Did something happen? Did I do something wrong?" There was silence on the other end for what felt like forever. Then she sighed, like I was bothering her with my questions. "Frank, it's not about you. We just made a family decision to keep things low-key this year." Family decision. That phrase stuck in my throat. Since when was I not part of this family? Since when did they make decisions about my granddaughter's birthday without even talking to me? "Can I talk to Michael?" I asked. "He's at work," she said immediately. "Look, Frank, I have to go. Emma needs me." And she hung up. Just like that. Left me sitting there holding the phone, staring at the wall, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. I tried calling Michael's cell phone, straight to voicemail. His work phone? Secretary said he was in meetings all day. I left messages, but by evening, still nothing. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Emma, about how excited she was about turning 8. She'd been counting down the days, making lists of who she wanted to invite, talking about the games they'd play. And now suddenly it was all canceled? The next morning, I called again. This time, Michael answered. "Dad, hey, sorry I missed your calls yesterday." His voice sounded normal, which somehow made everything worse. Like nothing had happened. Like his wife hadn't just uninvited me from my own granddaughter's birthday. "Michael, what's going on with Emma's party?" Rebecca called and said it was canceled. There was a pause. A long pause that told me everything I needed to know. "Yeah, Dad, we decided to just skip it this year. Keep things simple." Keep things simple. There was that phrase again. Like having her grandfather at her birthday was somehow complicated. "Son, I don't understand. Emma was so excited. What changed?" Another pause. "Dad, look, it's just easier this way, okay?" Easier. For who? Certainly not for Emma. Certainly not for the grandfather who'd been looking forward to seeing his granddaughter blow out 8 candles. Michael, did I do something? If I upset Rebecca somehow… Dad, it's not about you. He cut me off. The same words Rebecca had used, like they'd rehearsed this conversation. We just want a quiet weekend with Emma. A quiet weekend. Without her grandfather. The man who'd been there for every birthday, every Christmas, every important moment of her life. Can I at least call Emma? Wish her happy birthday. She's going to be busy this weekend. Maybe next week, Dad. Maybe next week. My granddaughter's 8th birthday was happening this weekend, and I was supposed to wait until next week to even talk to her. I hung up that phone feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hurt. Real, deep hurt that started in my chest and spread through my whole body. But underneath that hurt was something else. Something that had kept me going through 40 years of hard work, through losing my wife, through every challenge life had thrown at me. Determination. Because Frank Thompson didn't raise 3 kids and survive 73 years on this earth by taking things lying down. And if my own family thought they could just push me aside like I didn't matter, like I wasn't important enough to be at my granddaughter's birthday, well, they were about to learn something about the old man they'd apparently forgotten. I had 2 days until Saturday. 2 days to figure out what was really going on. And I had a feeling that when I did find out, nobody was going to like what I had to say about it. Thursday morning came, and I couldn't shake this feeling that something was rotten in Denmark, as my old man used to say. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee, staring at Emma's present. A beautiful dollhouse I'd been working on in my garage for 3 months. Hand-painted tiny furniture I'd carved myself. Little windows that actually opened. The kind of thing a grandfather makes when he's got nothing but time and love for his granddaughter. Now it was just sitting there, wrapped in bright pink paper with a big yellow bow, and nowhere to go. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found what I was looking for. Carol Martinez. She lived 2 houses down from Michael and Rebecca, and we'd struck up a friendship at the neighborhood barbecue last summer. Nice lady, about my age, widow like me. We'd chat whenever I visited Emma. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. Frank? Is that you? How nice to hear from you. Hey, Carol. Hope I'm not bothering you. I was wondering, you wouldn't happen to know anything about Emma's birthday party this weekend, would you? There was a pause on the other end. Emma's birthday party? Oh, honey, yes. Saturday afternoon, right? Rebecca was just telling me yesterday how excited Emma is. She's been running around the backyard all week, planning where to put the bounce house. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. Bounce house? Oh yes, they rented this huge bounce house. Looks like it's going to be quite the celebration. Emma's been inviting kids from her class, and Rebecca's been busy getting decorations and… Carol stopped mid-sentence. Wait, Frank, aren't you going? I just assumed… The words hit me like a freight train. Bounce house. Decorations. Kids from her class. This wasn't a canceled party. This wasn't a quiet weekend. This was a full-blown birthday celebration, and I was the only one who'd been told it was canceled. Frank, you still there? Carol's voice sounded concerned. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, I'm here. Just must have gotten my wires crossed about the details. Well, I'm sure it'll be wonderful. Emma's such a sweet girl, and she talks about her grandpa all the time. Just last week she was telling my grandson how you taught her to fish. After I hung up, I sat there in my kitchen, feeling like the ground had shifted underneath me. They were having the party, a big party, with bounce houses and decorations and all of Emma's friends. And they'd deliberately lied to me. Not just Rebecca, Michael too. My own son had looked me in the eye, over the phone, and lied to his father. But why? That was the question that kept pounding in my head. Why would they exclude me? What had I done that was so terrible they couldn't even be honest with me? I spent the rest of Thursday thinking, trying to piece together when things had started to change. It wasn't sudden, I realized. Over the past few months, the invitations to family dinners had become less frequent. The phone calls had gotten shorter. When I'd visit Emma, Rebecca would find reasons to cut the visits short. Friday morning, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I drove by their house. I parked about a block away and walked slowly past their place, like I was just an old man taking a morning stroll. The yard was already being set up. There was a delivery truck in the driveway, and 2 men were unloading tables and chairs. Bright red and yellow streamers were being hung from the porch. Rebecca was outside, directing the setup, looking more animated and happy than I'd seen her in months. She was planning one hell of a party for my granddaughter. The granddaughter I'd supposedly been uninvited from seeing because it was cancelled. I kept walking, my hands shoved deep in my jacket pockets, my mind racing. This wasn't just about excluding me from a party. This was about cutting me out of Emma's life entirely. They were making sure I wouldn't accidentally show up and ruin whatever story they'd told people about why Grandpa Frank wasn't there. That afternoon, I called my oldest friend, Bill Henderson. We'd worked construction together for 20 years before we both retired. Bill had a way of seeing through bullshit that I'd always respected. "Bill, can I ask you something? And I want you to be straight with me." "Shoot, Frank. You know I don't sugarcoat nothing." I told him everything. The phone call, the lies, what Carol had told me about the party preparations. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. "Frank," Bill finally said, "that's some cold-blooded shit right there. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to just show up tomorrow and see what happens. And the other part? The other part wants to know why first. What did I do that made my own son think it was okay to lie to me like this?" Bill was quiet for a moment. "Frank, in my experience, when people start cutting family out like this, it ain't usually about what the family member did. It's about what they want to do without them around." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Emma, about how confused she must be that her grandpa wasn't coming to her party. Had they told her I was sick, that I didn't want to come? Or had they simply not mentioned me at all, like I never existed? Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly. I sat in my kitchen, watching the rain streak down the windows, listening to the silence. By now, Emma should have been bouncing off the walls with excitement. The party was supposed to start at 2 o'clock. I looked at that dollhouse again, still sitting on my counter, still wrapped in its bright paper. 3 months of work, 3 months of thinking about Emma's face when she saw it, 3 months of planning the perfect surprise for my granddaughter. And then I made a decision, not the smart decision, not the safe decision, not the decision that would keep peace in the family. I was going to that party. Not because I was invited, not because I thought I'd be welcome, but because Emma was my granddaughter, and I'd be damned if I was going to miss her 8th birthday because her parents had decided to play games with an old man. I stood up, picked up that dollhouse, and headed for my truck. Frank Thompson was about to make an appearance that nobody was expecting, and when the dust settled, we were all going to have a very different understanding of what family means. I pulled up to Michael's house at 15 minutes after the party was. The scene in front of me was like a slap in the face. Cars lined both sides of the street. Balloons were tied to the mailbox. I could hear children's laughter and the bounce house carol, bright blue and yellow, kids already jumping in. This wasn't some quiet This was exactly the kind of party Emma had been dreaming about for weeks. I sat in my truck for a full 5 minutes, just watching. Parents were walking up the driveway with wrapped presents and smiling kids in tow. Rebecca was at the front door, greeting everyone with huge smiles and warm hugs. She was wearing a bright yellow dress I'd never seen before, the kind of outfit you wear when you want to make sure you look perfect for pictures. The dollhouse sat in the passenger seat next to me, and for a moment I wondered if I was making a mistake. Maybe I should just drive away, pretend I never found out, save everyone the embarrassment. But then I saw something that made my blood boil. Through the front window I could see into their living room. There was my son Michael, holding Emma on his shoulders, both of them laughing. Emma was wearing a bright pink dress with a tiara on her head, looking like the birthday princess she was supposed to be. And Michael looked happier than I'd seen him in months. They weren't grieving my absence. They weren't missing their father and grandfather. They were having the time of their lives without me. I grabbed the dollhouse, got out of my truck, and walked up that driveway like I owned the place. The first person to see me was Rebecca. She was saying goodbye to some parents at the front door when she spotted me coming up the walkway. The smile disappeared from her face so fast you'd think someone had slapped her. Her mouth actually fell open. "Frank," she said, and I could hear the panic in her voice. What are you doing here?" "Well, Rebecca," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady, "I'm here for my granddaughter's birthday party. You know, the one that got canceled?" The parent she'd been talking to looked confused, sensing the tension but not understanding it. Rebecca's face went bright red. "Frank, I told you we weren't having—" "I can see exactly what you told me," I cut her off. "And I can see exactly what's really happening here." I walked past her into the house, and that's when I heard it. That voice that always made my heart light up. "Grandpa Frank!" Emma came running around the corner, still wearing that tiara, her face absolutely glowing with joy. She threw her arms around my legs and hugged me tight. "Grandpa, you came to my party. I thought... Mommy said you couldn't come because you were busy." I knelt down to her level, looking into those bright blue eyes. "Busy? Baby girl? Nothing in this world is more important than your birthday. I brought you something special," I said, holding up the dollhouse. Emma's eyes went wide. "Oh my gosh, Grandpa, it's beautiful. Did you make this?" "Every piece of it, sweetheart. Just for you." That's when Michael appeared. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw me, and I watched about 5 different emotions cross his face in the span of 2 seconds. Surprise, guilt, anger, and something that looked like fear. "Dad," he said, and his voice was tight. "What are you doing here?" I stood up slowly, never taking my eyes off my son. "I'm here for Emma's birthday, Michael. My granddaughter's 8th birthday. The one your wife told me was canceled." The room had gone quiet. Some of the other parents and kids were starting to notice the tension. Emma was still holding onto my leg, looking confused by the adult drama surrounding her special day. "Dad, we talked about this," Michael said, trying to keep his voice low. "We said we wanted to keep things small this year." "Small?" I looked around the room at the 20-some kids running around, the elaborate decorations, the stack of presents on the table that was taller than Emma herself. "This is what you call small?" Rebecca had followed me inside and was now standing behind Michael like he was a shield. "Frank, please don't make a scene. There are children here." "Oh, now you're worried about the children?" I could feel my anger rising, but I kept my voice controlled. "You weren't worried about one particular child when you lied to her grandfather about her party being canceled." "We didn't lie," Michael said, but even he didn't sound convinced. "Son, I've been lied to by better people than you. Your wife called me and told me this party was canceled. You backed up her story. And here I am, looking at the biggest birthday party this neighborhood has seen all year." Emma tugged on my shirt. "Grandpa, why are you and Daddy talking like this? Are you mad?" I looked down at my granddaughter, this beautiful little girl who was supposed to be having the best day of her year, and something inside me shifted. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about her. "No, baby girl," I said, forcing a smile. "Grandpa's not mad at you. Never at you." But when I looked back up at Michael and Rebecca, they could see exactly how mad I was at them. "We need to talk," I said to my son. "Now." "Dad, this isn't the time." "Michael." I used the voice I'd used when he was 8 years old and had broken something he wasn't supposed to touch. "We're going to talk. Right now." Rebecca stepped forward. "Frank, I think you should leave." The words hung in the air like smoke. Around us, the party was still going on, but our little corner of the room felt like we were in a bubble of tension. "Leave," I repeated. "Leave my granddaughter's birthday party, the one I've never missed in 8 years? You're making everyone uncomfortable," she said. I looked around the room. Some of the adults were definitely watching our conversation, trying to pretend they weren't. But the kids, including Emma, were just confused. "The only people who look uncomfortable," I said, "are the 2 people who lied to me." Michael grabbed my arm. "Dad, come on. Let's go outside and talk about this." I looked at Emma one more time. She was holding the dollhouse, but her smile was gone. She was starting to understand that something was very wrong. "Okay," I said. "Let's go outside and talk about why you thought it was okay to lie to your father about his granddaughter's birthday." As we walked toward the back door, I heard Emma call out behind us. "Grandpa, you're coming back, right? You're not leaving my party?" I turned around and gave her the biggest smile I could manage. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. Grandpa's got some things to say to your daddy, and then we're going to celebrate your birthday proper. But as we stepped outside, I had a feeling that after this conversation, nothing in our family was ever going to be the same again. We walked to the far corner of the backyard, away from the bounce house and the kids playing. Michael's hands were shoved deep in his pockets, and he wouldn't look me in the eye. Rebecca stayed close behind him, like she was afraid to let him out of her sight. All right, I said, crossing my arms. I'm listening. Explain to me why you thought it was okay to lie to your father. Michael finally looked up at me, and I could see something in his face I'd never seen before. It wasn't just guilt. It was something harder, colder. Dad, it's complicated. Complicated? I let out a bitter laugh. Son, I raised 3 kids while working 2 jobs after your mother died. I know complicated. This isn't complicated. This is simple. You lied to me. Rebecca stepped closer to Michael. Frank, we had our reasons. I'm talking to my son, I said, not even looking at her. Michael, you want to tell me what those reasons were? Michael rubbed his face with his hands, like he was trying to buy time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, harder. Dad, the truth is, we needed a break from you. The words hit me like a physical blow. A break from me? Yes, he said, and now he was looking right at me. From the constant criticism. From you always having opinions about how we raise Emma. From you undermining Rebecca in front of our daughter. I stared at my son, trying to process what he'd just said. Undermining? Michael, what the hell are you talking about? Rebecca jumped in, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Frank, you criticize everything we do. The food we give Emma, the shows she watches, the rules we set. You act like we don't know how to be parents. That's not, I started, but Michael cut me off. Dad, last month you told Emma she could have ice cream before dinner because 1 scoop never hurt anyone. We'd already told her no. And 2 weeks ago, Rebecca added, you bought her that violent video game after we specifically said she wasn't allowed to have it. I remembered both incidents, but they seemed so small, so insignificant. That's what this is about? Ice cream and a video game? It's not about the ice cream, Michael said, his voice rising. It's about you not respecting us as parents. It's about you thinking you know better than we do about our own daughter. And it's about the stories, Rebecca said quietly. What stories? I asked. Michael and Rebecca exchanged a look, and I could see they'd talked about this before. Probably many times. Dad, you tell Emma stories about Mom, Michael said. About how Mom would have done things differently, how Mom would have let her do this or that. It makes Rebecca feel like she's being compared to a ghost. I felt my chest tighten. Your mother was Emma's grandmother. She has a right to know about her. We're not saying she doesn't, Rebecca said. But when you tell Emma that Grandma Martha would have let her stay up late or Grandma Martha made better cookies, it makes me feel like I'm not good enough, like I'll never measure up to a woman I never even met. The backyard seemed to spin around me. This was what they'd been thinking? This was why they'd cut me out? So you decided to lie to me instead of talking to me about it? We tried talking to you, Michael said. Remember Christmas? When Rebecca asked you to let us handle Emma's bedtime routine, you said fine, and then proceeded to tell Emma a story for 45 minutes after we put her to bed. I did remember that. Emma had asked for a story about her grandmother, and I couldn't say no to those blue eyes. Dad, we love you, Michael continued, but we need you to respect that we're Emma's parents, not you, us. And we need you to respect Rebecca, he added, looking at his wife. She's not trying to replace Mom. She's trying to be Emma's mother. And when you constantly reference how Mom would have done things better, it hurts her. I looked at Rebecca, really looked at her, and for the first time I could see the pain in her eyes. She wasn't just being difficult or trying to push me out. She was protecting herself from feeling inadequate in her own home. Rebecca, I said slowly, I never meant to make you feel that way. I know you didn't, she said, and her voice was softer now. But Frank, every family dinner, every visit, there's always a comment about how Martha did this or would have thought that. It makes me feel like I'm failing at being the mother Emma needs. The anger I'd been carrying started to transform into something else. something that felt like shame. But lying to me? I said. Telling me the party was canceled? That was your solution? Michael's jaw tightened again. Dad, we invited you to the last 3 family events, and every single time there was conflict. You contradicted us in front of Emma. You made comments about our parenting. You brought up Mom in ways that made Rebecca feel bad. We wanted one day where Emma could enjoy her party without walking on eggshells. Walking on eggshells? The words came out harsher than I intended. Is that what you think it's like when I'm around? Yes, Rebecca said simply. It is. I stood there in that backyard, surrounded by the sounds of children playing and celebrating my granddaughter's birthday, and felt more alone than I had since Martha died. So what now? I asked. You just planning to keep lying to me? Keep me away from Emma whenever it's convenient for you? We don't want to keep you away from Emma, Michael said. We want you to be part of her life, but we need boundaries, Dad. We need you to respect us as her parents. And we need you to respect our family, Rebecca added. The family we've built together. I thought about Emma inside, probably wondering why all the adults had disappeared from her party. I thought about the dollhouse I'd spent 3 months making, about all the birthdays and Christmases and bedtime stories we'd shared. I thought about my late wife Martha, and how proud she'd been of the man Michael had become. You should have talked to me, I said finally, before it got to this point, before you felt like lying was your only option. We tried, Michael said. But Dad, you have to admit, you're not the easiest person to have these conversations with. You get defensive. You shut down. He was right. And I hated that he was right. So where does that leave us? I asked. Michael and Rebecca looked at each other again, and I could see they'd thought about this too. It leaves us needing to figure out how to move forward, Michael said. If you're willing to work with us. Inside the house, I could hear Emma's voice calling for her grandpa. My granddaughter was looking for me, and I was standing in her backyard having my failures as a father and grandfather laid out in front of me like evidence at a trial. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to figure out how to do better. I stood there for a long moment, letting their words sink in. Part of me wanted to fight back, to defend every story I'd told about Martha, every piece of ice cream I'd given Emma, every time I'd bent their rules because I thought it was harmless. But there was another part of me, a quieter part, that was starting to understand something I didn't want to admit. You know what the hardest part about this is? I said finally. Michael and Rebecca waited. The hardest part is that you might be right. Rebecca's expression softened, and Michael's shoulders relaxed, just a little. I never meant to undermine you, I continued. But maybe I've been so focused on keeping Martha's memory alive that I forgot you two are trying to build your own memories with Emma. Dad, Michael started, but I held up my hand. No, let me finish. You said I get defensive, and you're right about that too. When Martha died, I felt like I had to be everything for you kids. Father, mother, disciplinarian, friend. And maybe I never learned how to step back when you grew up and started families of your own. I looked at Rebecca, really looked at her. Rebecca, I owe you an apology. Not just for today, but for making you feel like you had to compete with a memory. That wasn't fair to you. Her eyes were getting watery. Frank, I loved Martha. From everything Michael told me about her, she was an amazing woman. I never wanted to replace her. I just wanted to feel like I belonged in this family too. You do belong, I said. And I should have made sure you knew that instead of making you feel like an outsider in your own home. Michael was watching this exchange with something that looked like hope in his eyes. But, I said, and both of them tensed up again, lying to me wasn't the answer. You want to talk about respect? Respect goes both ways. If we're going to figure this out, we need to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. You're right, Michael said. Dad, I'm sorry we lied to you. Rebecca wanted to just tell you the truth from the beginning, but I thought it would be easier this way. Easier for who? I asked. For me, he admitted. I didn't want to have another confrontation. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. But lying to you was wrong, and it hurt your feelings anyway. Just then, we heard Emma's voice from the back door. Grandpa Frank, Daddy, Mommy, come back. We're about to play musical chairs. I looked toward the house where my granddaughter was waiting for us, her face bright with excitement. Then I looked back at Michael and Rebecca. "Here's what we're going to do," I said. "We're going to go back in there, and we're going to make sure Emma has the best 8th birthday party ever. And tomorrow, when all the guests are gone and the decorations are put away, we're going to sit down and figure out how to make this family work better." "Dad," Michael started. "I'm not done," I said. "You want boundaries? Fine. We'll establish boundaries. You want respect? You'll get it. But I want something too." "What?" Rebecca asked. "I want honesty. No more lying to spare my feelings. No more making decisions about Emma behind my back. If you have a problem with something I'm doing, you tell me. Right then. Not 3 months later when it's built up into this." Michael nodded. "That's fair. And I want to still be Emma's grandfather. Not just the guy who shows up for holidays and birthday parties. I want to be part of her life in a real way. We just need to figure out what that looks like now that she's getting older and you two are her parents." "We want that too," Rebecca said. "Frank, we really do. We just need it to work for all of us." Emma's voice came again, more urgent this time. "Grandpa, the music's starting." I looked at my son and daughter-in-law. "So are we good enough to get through today? Can we put on happy faces for Emma and deal with the rest of this later?" "Yeah," Michael said. "We can do that." "Good, because that little girl has been looking forward to this party for weeks, and I'll be damned if the adults in her life are going to ruin it for her." We walked back toward the house, but Rebecca caught my arm before we reached the door. "Frank, there's something else you should know." I stopped. "What?" "Emma asked about you. This morning when we were setting up, she asked when Grandpa Frank was coming. We told her you might not make it because you were busy with something important." My chest tightened. "What did she say?" "She said, 'Nothing's more important than my birthday to Grandpa Frank. He'll be here.'" Rebecca's voice was soft. "She knows you, Frank. She knows how much you love her. And that's why this needs to work." Michael put his hand on my shoulder. "Dad, Emma adores you. We're not trying to take that away. We just want to make sure she grows up in a family where everyone feels respected and valued." I nodded, not trusting my voice for a moment. "All right then," I said finally. "Let's go make sure the birthday girl gets her musical chairs game." As we walked back into the house, Emma came running up to us, her tiara slightly crooked, and her face flushed with excitement. "Grandpa, you're back! Come on, you have to play musical chairs with us. Mrs. Peterson said she's going to play the piano, and whoever wins gets to pick the next game." She grabbed my hand and started pulling me toward the living room, where all the other kids were gathering. "You know, sweetheart," I said, "your old grandpa might not be as fast as he used to be. You sure you want me playing? I might slow everyone down." Emma looked up at me with those bright blue eyes, the same eyes her father had when he was her age. "Grandpa Frank, you're not old. You're experienced. And besides, I want you to play because it's more fun when you're here." As she pulled me into the circle of children getting ready for musical chairs, I caught Michael and Rebecca watching us from the doorway. Rebecca was smiling, and Michael had that look on his face that fathers get when they see their children happy. Maybe we hadn't solved everything in that backyard conversation. Maybe there would be more difficult talks ahead, more boundaries to establish, more trust to rebuild. But right now, in this moment, I was exactly where I was supposed to be, playing musical chairs at my granddaughter's 8th birthday party, surrounded by the family I'd helped raise and the new family they'd built together. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. The musical chairs game was in full swing, and I was having more fun than I'd had in months. Emma was right. I might not have been the fastest anymore, but I was definitely experienced. I'd managed to stay in the game longer than half the kids, much to their amazement and my granddaughter's delight. "Go, Grandpa Frank!" Emma cheered from the sidelines after she'd been eliminated. "Show them how it's done!" Mrs. Peterson, the neighbor who was playing piano, was having as much fun as the rest of us. She kept changing the tempo just to throw us off, playing slow and dreamy 1 second, then fast and jazzy the next. When there were only 3 chairs left, and 4 of us still in the game, me, 2 8-year-olds, and 1 very determined 6-year-old, the music stopped suddenly. I dove for the nearest chair, but so did little Tommy Chen. We both ended up on the same chair, him on my lap, both of us laughing. "I think that's a tie," Mrs. Peterson announced, and the whole room erupted in cheers. "No way," Tommy said, grinning. "Mr. Frank got here first. He wins." "You sure about that, buddy?" I asked him. "Looked to me like you beat this old man fair and square." Tommy thought about it seriously for a moment, then shook his head. "Nah, you win. But next game, I'm gonna get you." I ruffled his hair and looked around the room. All these kids, all these parents. And for the first time since I'd arrived, everyone looked relaxed and happy. The tension from earlier had melted away, replaced by the simple joy of children playing games. Emma ran up to me, her face glowing. "Grandpa, that was awesome. You're like the musical chairs champion." "Well, I had a good teacher," I said, winking at her. "Your Grandma Martha taught me that game when your daddy was about your age." I saw Rebecca tense up slightly from across the room, and I realized what I'd just done. Here we were, not an hour after our conversation about me bringing up Martha too much, and I'd done it again. But then something different happened. Instead of looking hurt or frustrated, Rebecca walked over to us. "Really?" she said to Emma. "Grandpa Frank learned from Grandma Martha? I bet she was really good at games." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Grandpa tells me stories about her sometimes. She sounded really fun." "She was," Rebecca said, and I could hear that she was making an effort. "Your daddy has told me lots of stories about her, too. Maybe sometime we could look at pictures of her and Grandpa Frank when they were younger." It was a small thing, but it felt huge. Rebecca wasn't trying to shut down the conversation about Martha. She was trying to join it. "I'd like that," Emma said. "Could we do that today?" "Maybe after the party," Rebecca said. "Right now, we've got cake to cut and presents to open." "Speaking of presents," I said, "Emma, did you get a chance to look at that dollhouse I brought you?" "Oh my gosh, yes! Grandpa, it's the most beautiful thing ever. Mommy, did you see it? He made it himself." Rebecca nodded. "I saw it, sweetheart. It's incredible. Your grandpa is very talented." Michael appeared beside us, carrying a stack of paper plates. "Dad, where did you learn to make something like that? I remember you being handy, but that dollhouse is like professional quality." "YouTube," I admitted, and everyone laughed. "You'd be amazed what you can learn on the internet when you've got too much time on your hands and a granddaughter's birthday coming up." "How long did it take you?" Rebecca asked. "About 3 months. Started right after Christmas. Figured Emma was getting old enough to appreciate something like that." Emma hugged my leg. "I'm going to keep it forever and ever. And when I have kids, they can play with it too." "When you have kids?" Michael laughed. "Emma, you're 8 years old." "So? I'm planning ahead, Daddy. Grandpa Frank always says it's good to plan ahead." Over the next hour, something amazing happened. The awkwardness that had been hanging over our family for months started to lift. Not completely. There were still moments of tension. Still careful looks exchanged between Michael and Rebecca. But it was better. During present opening, I found myself standing next to Rebecca, both of us watching Emma tear through wrapping paper with the enthusiasm only an 8-year-old can muster. "Frank," Rebecca said quietly, "thank you for what you said earlier, about me belonging in this family." "I meant it," I said. "And Rebecca, I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Of course. I was terrified of you when Michael and I first started dating." I looked at her in surprise. "Terrified? Of me? You were this larger-than-life figure. Michael talked about you constantly, how you'd raised him and his siblings after Martha died, how hard you'd worked, how strong you were. I felt like I could never measure up to what you'd want for your son. Rebecca, you made my son happy. That's all I ever wanted. I know that now. But back then, I felt like I was being compared to Martha before I even met her. And then when Emma came along, I felt like I was being compared to her too. Like I wasn't good enough to be the mother of Martha's granddaughter. I felt that familiar pang of guilt. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know you didn't. But Frank, when you tell Emma that Martha would have done something differently, or when you bring up how Martha handled things when Michael was young, it makes me feel like I'm failing. I watched Emma across the room, showing off one of her new toys to her friends. Rebecca, you're not failing. Look at that little girl. She's confident, she's kind, she's smart, she's happy. That's because of you and Michael. That's because of the home you've built for her. Rebecca's eyes got watery again. Thank you for saying that. I should have said it a long time ago. We stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, watching our family. Because that's what Rebecca was. Family. Not just Michael's wife, not just Emma's mother, but part of our family. I'd been so focused on preserving the past that I'd forgotten to embrace the present. So what happens now? Rebecca asked. Now we figure it out as we go, I said. But we figure it out together. And we talk about it when things get difficult instead of letting them build up. And no more lying, she said. No more lying, I agreed. Emma came running over to us, holding a new book one of her friends had given her. Grandpa Frank, look, it's a book about princesses. Will you read it to me sometime? I looked at Rebecca, and she nodded. I'd love to, sweetheart. But next time I come over to read to you, I'm going to check with your mommy and daddy first to make sure it's okay. Deal. Emma looked a little confused by this new development, but she nodded. Deal. But Grandpa? Yeah? You're still going to come over a lot, right? For reading and fishing and building things? I knelt down to her level. Emma, as long as your parents say it's okay, and as long as you want me to, I'll keep coming over. Nothing's going to change how much your grandpa loves you. Good, she said, and gave me a hug that made everything else worth it. As I hugged my granddaughter, I caught Michael's eye across the room. He was watching us with that same expression I'd seen earlier, hope mixed with relief. Maybe we really could figure this out after all. The party started winding down around 5 o'clock. Parents were gathering up tired kids and thanking Michael and Rebecca for a wonderful time. Emma was exhausted but happy, her face sticky with cake frosting and her new tiara sitting crooked on her head. I was helping clean up, stacking paper plates and collecting empty cups, when I noticed something. Instead of the usual polite distance Rebecca kept from me during family gatherings, she was working alongside me, talking naturally about the party, about how much fun Emma had, about which games were the biggest hits. The musical chairs was definitely the highlight, she said, tying up a garbage bag. I haven't seen Emma laugh that hard in weeks. Tommy Chen's got some serious competition skills, I said. Kid's going to be trouble in a few years. Michael walked over, carrying a box full of Emma's new presents. Dad, thanks for helping clean up. You don't have to do all this. Michael, I've been cleaning up after kids' parties since before you could walk. This is nothing. He smiled at that. Yeah, I remember some of those birthday parties. You and Mom used to go all out. There it was again, me bringing up Martha. But this time, instead of the uncomfortable silence that usually followed, Rebecca chimed in. I would have loved to see those parties. Michael's told me about the treasure hunts you used to organize. Oh man, Michael laughed. The treasure hunts. Dad would spend hours hiding clues around the whole neighborhood. Half the parents would end up joining in just to see how elaborate they were. Emma would love something like that, Rebecca said. Maybe for her 9th birthday? I looked at her surprised. You'd want me to organize a treasure hunt? Frank, you're her grandfather. Of course we'd want you involved in planning her parties. We need to plan them together, you know. Like a team. The word team hit me harder than I expected. When had I stopped thinking of us as a team? When had I started thinking it was me against them instead of all of us working together for Emma's sake? Emma came running over, dragging her new dollhouse. Grandpa Frank, can you show me how all the little doors work? And can you tell me about the furniture you made? I looked at Michael and Rebecca. Is it okay if I sit with Emma for a few minutes? Show her the dollhouse. Of course, Michael said. Dad, you don't have to ask permission to spend time with Emma. You're her grandfather. I know, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page. We settled on the living room floor, Emma and I, with the dollhouse between us. She was fascinated by every detail. The tiny hinges on the doors, the miniature furniture I'd carved, the little lights that actually worked when you flipped the switches. How did you make the chairs so small? She asked, holding up a tiny wooden rocking chair. Very carefully, I said, and with a lot of mistakes. I probably made about 20 rocking chairs before I got one that looked right. 20? Why didn't you just give up? Because, sweetheart, when you're making something special for someone you love, you don't give up. You keep trying until you get it right. Emma studied the little chair thoughtfully. Is that why you came to my party today, even though Mommy said it was canceled? Out of the mouths of babes. I glanced over at Michael and Rebecca, who were pretending not to listen while they finished cleaning up. Emma, sometimes grown-ups make mistakes when they're trying to figure out how to make things work. Your Mommy and Daddy and I had some things we needed to talk about. Are you mad at them? No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. We were all just confused about some things, but we're going to figure it out. Good, she said matter-of-factly, because I want you at all my birthday parties. Forever and ever. Well, I don't know about forever and ever, I said. But as long as your parents say it's okay, and as long as you want me there, I'll do my best to make it to everyone. Emma seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to exploring the dollhouse. But her question had reminded me of something important. This wasn't just about me and Michael and Rebecca. This was about Emma and what was best for her. She needed all of us to work together, not to be fighting and keeping secrets from each other. About 20 minutes later, the last of the guests had left, and it was just family. Emma was sprawled on the living room floor with her new toys. Michael was loading the dishwasher, and Rebecca was taking down decorations. I should probably head home, I said. Let you all recover from party chaos. Dad, wait, Michael said, turning off the water. We still need to have that conversation we talked about how to make this work going forward. You want to do that now? Emma's right here. Actually, Rebecca said, maybe that's exactly when we should have this conversation. Emma's part of this family too. She should understand what we're agreeing to. We all sat down in the living room. Emma continued playing with her toys, but I could tell she was listening. Okay, Michael said. Dad, you said you wanted honesty, so let's be honest. What do you need from us to feel like you're still an important part of Emma's life? I thought about it for a moment. I need to feel like my opinions matter. Not that you have to do everything I suggest, but that you at least consider what I have to say. I need to feel like I can share stories about Martha without making Rebecca feel bad. And I need to know that when we make plans involving Emma, we're all making them together. Those seem reasonable, Rebecca said. What do you need from us to feel respected as Emma's parents? Michael and Rebecca looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations married couples have. We need you to back us up when we set rules for Emma, Michael said. Even if you disagree with the rule. If you have a problem with something we've decided, talk to us about it when Emma's not around. And we need you to trust that we know what's best for Emma, Rebecca added. We're not perfect parents, but we're her parents. We're doing our best. And, Michael continued, we need you to help us make sure Emma knows about Mom without making Rebecca feel like she's competing with a memory. I looked at Emma, who had stopped playing and was now openly listening to our conversation. Emma, I said, what do you think? Do these sound like good rules for our family? She considered this seriously. I think so. But Grandpa Frank? Yeah? Can we add one more rule? What's that, sweetheart? No more lying about birthday parties. That was scary. Michael and Rebecca both looked embarrassed, and I felt a surge of pride in my granddaughter's wisdom. You're absolutely right, I said. No more lying about birthday parties, or anything else. Deal? Emma nodded seriously. Deal. As I got ready to leave that evening, I realized something had fundamentally shifted in our family. We weren't just three adults trying to figure out how to coexist around one little girl. We were actually starting to become a real family unit, with Emma at the center, but all of us working together. It wasn't going to be perfect. There would be more difficult conversations, more adjustments, more times when we'd have to remind ourselves of the agreements we'd made. But for the first time in months, I felt hopeful about what our family could become. 3 weeks after Emma's birthday party, I got a phone call that tested everything we'd agreed to. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in my garage working on a new project, a wooden swing set for Emma's backyard. Michael had called me the week before to ask if I'd be interested in building it, and we'd spent an hour on the phone talking through the design together. It felt good, being consulted instead of just showing up with something already finished. The phone rang while I was sanding down one of the swing set posts. "Frank." It was Rebecca, and her voice sounded strained. "Hey, Rebecca, what's up? I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." I set down my sandpaper and gave her my full attention. "Okay, what's going on?" "Emma came home from school today and told me that her teacher, Mrs. Williams, said she's been having trouble concentrating in class. She's been daydreaming a lot, not finishing her assignments." "That doesn't sound like Emma," I said. "She's usually so focused." "That's what I thought too. But when I asked Emma about it, she said she's been thinking about something you told her. About how Grandma Martha used to be a teacher before she had kids." My stomach dropped. I remembered that conversation. It had been 2 weeks ago during one of my visits. Emma had been complaining about a math worksheet, and I'd mentioned that her grandmother had been a teacher and would have loved to help her with homework. "Frank, Emma asked me if maybe she should have been born when Grandma Martha was alive, because then she would have had a better teacher to help her." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Oh God, Rebecca. I never meant—" "I know you didn't mean it that way. But Frank, this is exactly what we talked about. When you tell Emma these stories about Martha, she starts to think that things would have been better if Martha were here instead of me." I sat down heavily on my workbench. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that Grandma Martha sounds like she was a wonderful teacher, but that her current teacher, Mrs. Williams, is also a good teacher, and that if she needs help with homework, she can always ask me or Daddy." "And what did she say?" Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "She said, but Grandpa Frank says Grandma Martha was the best teacher ever, better than anyone." I felt sick. "Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize." "Frank, I know you didn't realize it, but this is what I've been trying to tell you. Emma hangs on every word you say about Martha. And when you describe Martha as the best at everything, Emma starts to think that I'm not good enough." I stood up and started pacing around my garage. "What do you want me to do? Stop talking about Martha entirely?" "No, I don't want you to stop talking about Martha, but I need you to be more careful about how you talk about her." "What do you mean?" "Instead of saying Martha was the best teacher ever, maybe you could say she was a good teacher who loved helping kids learn. Instead of saying she made the best cookies, maybe you could say she enjoyed baking, and her cookies were delicious." I thought about that. It seemed like such a small difference, but I was starting to understand what Rebecca meant. "You want me to talk about Martha as a real person, instead of as a perfect person." "Exactly. Because Frank, Martha wasn't perfect. She was human, just like me. And when you make her sound perfect, you make me feel like I'll never measure up." I stopped pacing. "Rebecca, you're right, and I owe you another apology. I've been thinking about this all wrong." "What do you mean?" "I've been so worried about Emma forgetting Martha that I've been turning her into some kind of saint. But that's not fair to Martha's memory, and it's definitely not fair to you." "Frank, no, let me finish. Martha was a good teacher, but she also burned dinner half the time because she'd get distracted grading papers. She made great cookies, but she also once accidentally put salt instead of sugar in a batch, and we had to throw the whole thing away. She was an amazing woman, but she was human." I could hear Rebecca's voice soften. "Thank you for saying that. And Rebecca, you are a good mother. Not because you're like Martha, and not because you're different from Martha. You're a good mother because you love Emma, and you put her needs first, and you're doing your best every single day." There was silence on the phone for a moment. "So, what do we do about Emma's teacher situation?" Rebecca asked. "We fix it. Together. Can I come over and talk to Emma, with you and Michael there? You want to correct what you told her? I want to help her understand that having different people in her life doesn't mean some are better than others. They're just different." When I got to Michael and Rebecca's house an hour later, Emma was at the kitchen table working on homework. She looked up when I walked in, and her face lit up the way it always did when she saw me. "Grandpa Frank, I was just thinking about what you said about Grandma Martha being a teacher." Michael and Rebecca exchanged a look. "Actually, sweetheart, that's what I wanted to talk to you about," I said, sitting down at the table with her. "I think I might have said something that confused you." Emma tilted her head. What do you mean? Well, when I told you that Grandma Martha was a great teacher, I think I made it sound like she was better than your teacher at school. But that's not what I meant. She wasn't better than Mrs. Williams? Emma. They were both good teachers, but in different ways. Grandma Martha was good at teaching kids your daddy's age, a long time ago. Mrs. Williams is good at teaching kids your age right now. They're both special, just differently. Emma considered this. Like how you're good at making dollhouses and Daddy's good at fixing cars. Exactly like that. People can be good at the same thing in different ways. And Mommy's good at helping me with my reading, and you're good at telling me stories about fishing. That's right. We all have different ways of helping you learn and grow. Emma nodded, seeming to understand. So, I don't need to wish I was born when Grandma Martha was alive. No, sweetheart. You were born exactly when you were supposed to be born, to exactly the parents you were supposed to have. And Grandma Martha would have loved you so much, but she would have wanted you to have the family you have now. Emma seemed satisfied with this explanation and went back to her homework. But as I watched her work, I realized something important. This conversation hadn't just been about correcting a mistake I'd made. It had been about learning how to talk about Martha in a way that honored her memory without diminishing the people who were actually in Emma's life now. And maybe that was the key to making this whole family thing work. Not choosing between the past and the present, but finding a way to honor both. 2 months later, I got a call that I never expected. I was finishing up the swing set in Emma's backyard. Michael, Rebecca, Emma, and I had spent the whole Saturday working on it together. It was almost done. Just needed a few more screws in the monkey bars. Emma was inside getting cleaned up for dinner, and I was packing up my tools when my phone rang. It was my youngest son, David. We hadn't talked in over 6 months. Dad, it's David. David, I said, surprised. How are you, son? I'm okay. Listen, Dad, I heard about what happened with Michael and Rebecca, about Emma's birthday party. My stomach tightened. What did you hear? Michael called me a few weeks ago, told me about the fight you guys had and how you worked things out. Dad, I need to ask you something. I sat down on Emma's picnic table. What's that? Is it true that you've been difficult with Michael and Rebecca? The question stung, even though I knew the answer. Yes, son, it's true. I made some mistakes. There was a long pause on the other end. Dad, I think you made mistakes with me too. My heart started beating faster. What do you mean? When Sarah and I got divorced 3 years ago, you took her side. You told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life, that I was destroying my kids' family, that I wasn't thinking about what was best for them. I remembered that conversation. I'd been angry with David, disappointed in him for giving up on his marriage. David, I was just trying to... Dad, you didn't even ask me why we were getting divorced. You didn't ask what had been going wrong or how we'd tried to fix it or anything. You just assumed I was being selfish and stupid. The words hit me like cold water. Son. And then when I tried to explain, you kept talking about how Mom would have been so disappointed in me, how Mom would have found a way to make the marriage work, how Mom never gave up on anything. I felt sick. David, I didn't mean... Dad, it was the same thing Michael told me you were doing to Rebecca. Comparing everyone to Mom, making us feel like we could never measure up to her. I sat there in Emma's backyard, listening to my youngest son tell me how I'd hurt him the same way I'd been hurting Michael and Rebecca, and I felt like the ground was shifting underneath me. David, why didn't you tell me this before? Because every time I tried to talk to you about it, you'd get defensive, or you'd bring up Mom again, or you'd lecture me about family values. It was easier to just stop calling. Stop calling. That's why I hadn't heard from David in 6 months. Not because he was busy, not because he lived across the country, but because I'd made him feel like I didn't support him when he needed me most. Son, I'm so sorry. Dad, Sarah was having an affair. For 2 years. I tried everything I could think of to save the marriage. Counseling, therapy, date nights, weekend getaways. But she didn't want to save it. She wanted out. My throat felt tight. David, why didn't you tell me that? I tried to, but you were so focused on telling me what I was doing wrong that you never listened to what I was actually going through. I thought back to those conversations 3 years ago. Had I really not listened? Had I been so concerned with giving advice that I'd missed my son telling me he was in pain? Dad, when Michael told me you guys had worked things out, I thought maybe we could try to work things out too. I want that, I said quickly. David, I want that more than anything. But I need to know that you're not going to judge me. I need to know that you're going to listen to me instead of just telling me what you think I should do. I can do that. I will do that. And I need you to stop comparing me to Mom. Dad, I loved Mom too. But she's been gone for 8 years, and I can't live my life trying to be what you think she would have wanted me to be. That hit me harder than anything else he'd said. Because I realized I'd been doing exactly that. Not just with David, but with all my kids. I'd been so afraid of letting Martha's memory fade that I'd been using it like a weapon against my own children. David, your mother loved you exactly as you are. She wouldn't want you to stay in a marriage that was making you miserable. She'd want you to be happy. You really believe that? I do. And son, I owe you a huge apology. Not just for the divorce thing, but for not being the father you needed when your world was falling apart. There was silence on the phone for a moment. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. When you were working things out with Michael and Rebecca, how did you do it? How did you change? I looked toward the house where I could see Michael and Rebecca in the kitchen, cooking dinner together while Emma set the table. I had to admit that I was wrong. And I had to listen, really listen, to what they were telling me instead of just defending myself. That sounds hard. It was the hardest thing I've done since your mother died. But David, it was worth it. Our relationship is better now than it's been in years. I want that with us too, Dad. Then let's make it happen. Tell me about your life now. Tell me about the kids. Tell me what I've missed. David started talking, and for the first time in years, I just listened. I didn't give advice, didn't interrupt, didn't judge. I just heard my son tell me about his life. He told me about how hard the divorce had been, about how he'd struggled with guilt and loneliness. He told me about his new job, about how much he loved being a single dad on weekends, about the woman he'd started dating who made him laugh again. Her name's Jennifer, he said. She's a teacher, has 2 kids of her own. We've been together about a year now. She sounds wonderful, I said. I'd like to meet her sometime. You would? You're not going to lecture me about introducing my kids to someone new? David, if she makes you happy and she's good to your kids, then I'm happy for you. Dad, that means more to me than you know. We talked for almost an hour. By the time we hung up, we'd made plans for David and his kids to visit for Thanksgiving, and he'd promised to bring Jennifer if she was comfortable with it. When I walked back into the house, Emma ran up to me. Grandpa Frank, Mommy made your favorite, meatloaf. That sounds perfect, sweetheart. Michael looked up from the stove. Dad, everything okay? You were on the phone for a while. Everything's better than okay, I said. That was David. We had a good talk. Rebecca turned around from where she was slicing bread. David. Wow, it's been a while since you've talked to him. Yeah, it has. Too long. I looked at Michael and Rebecca. You know, what we went through a few months ago, learning how to communicate better, learning how to respect each other. I think it's helping me with my other relationships too. Michael smiled. That's great, Dad. David's a good guy. I've always thought you two should talk more. Well, we're going to. He's coming for Thanksgiving, with his girlfriend and his kids. Emma perked up. Uncle David's coming? And I get to meet his girlfriend? That's right, sweetheart. It's going to be a full house. As we sat down for dinner that night, I looked around the table at my family. Emma was chattering about her day at school. Michael was telling Rebecca about a funny customer at the auto shop, and Rebecca was making sure everyone had enough to eat. 6 months ago, I'd felt like I was losing my family. I'd felt like they were pulling away from me, like I wasn't wanted or needed anymore. But sitting there at that dinner table, I realized something important. I hadn't been losing my family. I'd been holding on to them too tightly, trying to control how they loved me instead of just accepting the love they were offering. Grandpa Frank, Emma said, pulling me out of my thoughts. When Uncle David comes for Thanksgiving, will you tell him stories about when Daddy was little? I looked at Michael, who nodded with a smile. I sure will, sweetheart. I'll tell him all about how your daddy used to try to help me fix cars when he was about your age, and how he once took apart an entire lawnmower just to see how it worked. Did you get mad at him? Emma asked. Well, I was a little frustrated when I found all those lawnmower parts scattered across the garage floor, but mostly I was proud of him for being curious and wanting to learn. Michael laughed. You were pretty mad, Dad, but you helped me put it back together. That's what fathers do, I said. We help our kids put things back together when they fall apart. And sometimes I thought to myself, our kids help us put things back together too. After dinner, as we were cleaning up, Rebecca touched my arm. Frank, I'm proud of you for reaching out to David. Actually, he reached out to me, but I'm glad he did. It takes courage to admit when we've made mistakes with our kids. I thought about that. Rebecca, I'm learning that admitting mistakes isn't the hard part. The hard part is changing the behavior that caused the mistakes in the first place. She smiled. Well, you're doing a pretty good job of that. As I drove home that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I was finally learning how to be the father and grandfather my family needed, instead of the one I thought they should want. It had taken almost losing them to figure it out, but maybe that was okay. Maybe some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Thanksgiving Day arrived with the kind of crisp November morning that makes you grateful to be alive. I woke up early, as I always do, and made my coffee in the quiet of my kitchen. Through the window, I could see the maple tree in my backyard, its branches bare now, but still strong. It reminded me of something Martha used to say, that the most beautiful thing about trees wasn't their leaves, but their ability to stand firm through every season, adapting to whatever came their way. Today was going to be the first time in 3 years that all my kids would be in the same room. Michael, David, and my daughter Susan, who'd driven up from Florida with her husband and 2 teenagers. It was also going to be the first time I'd meet David's girlfriend Jennifer, and the first time our whole extended family would be together since Martha's funeral. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. At 9 o'clock, I loaded my truck with the pies I'd made, apple, pumpkin, and pecan. Yes, I'd learned to bake over the past few months. YouTube again, and a lot of trial and error. The first few attempts had been disasters that even Emma was too polite to finish. But I'd kept at it. When I pulled into Michael and Rebecca's driveway, I could see David's rental car already there. My stomach did a little flip. The last time David and I had been in the same room, we'd argued about his divorce, and I'd said things I regretted. Today felt like a test of everything I'd learned about being a better father. Emma came running out before I'd even turned off the truck. Grandpa Frank, Uncle David's here, and Jennifer's really nice. She brought homemade cookies and she taught me how to braid friendship bracelets. Her enthusiasm was infectious. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Is everyone inside? Yeah. Daddy and Uncle David are watching football and Mommy and Jennifer are cooking. And Aunt Susan's here too. This is the best Thanksgiving ever. As we walked toward the house, Emma grabbed my hand. Grandpa Frank, I'm really happy that Uncle David came. He seems different than the last time I saw him. Happier. Out of the mouths of babes. People can change, Emma. Sometimes they just need time and understanding. Is that what happened with you and Daddy and Mommy? You all changed? I stopped walking and knelt down to her level. What do you think happened, sweetheart? Emma considered this seriously. I think you all learned how to love each other better. If an 8-year-old could see it that clearly, maybe we really had made progress. Inside the house, the scene was everything I'd hoped for, but hadn't dared to expect. David was on the couch with Michael, both of them yelling at the television about a football play. Susan was in the kitchen with Rebecca and Jennifer, all 3 of them laughing about something while they cooked. David's kids, 12-year-old Tyler and 10-year-old Madison, were playing a board game with Susan's teenagers. It looked like a real family gathering, messy and loud and full of life. Dad! David stood up when he saw me, and there was something different in his face. The wariness that had been there for years was gone, replaced by something that looked like hope. David. I set down the pies and gave my son a hug. A real hug, not the stiff, careful ones we'd been giving each other for years. Dad, I want you to meet Jennifer. She was a small woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, and when she shook my hand, I could see why David had fallen for her. Mr. Thompson, it's so nice to finally meet you. David talks about you all the time. Good things, I hope, I said. Only good things, she said, and I could tell she meant it. The next few hours were a revelation. We cooked together, David and I working side by side to carve the turkey while he told me about his new job. Jennifer fit into our family like she'd always been there, helping Rebecca with the side dishes and sharing stories about her own kids with Susan. But the real moment came when we sat down to dinner. Before we eat, Michael said, I think we should go around the table and say what we're thankful for this year. It was something Martha used to do, and I felt a pang of missing her. But instead of the sharp pain it used to cause, it felt more like a warm memory. Emma went first. I'm thankful for my dollhouse, and for my new swing set, and for having my whole family here today. Rebecca was next. I'm thankful for second chances, and for learning that families can grow and change and become stronger. Michael cleared his throat. I'm thankful for my dad, who taught me that it's never too late to fix things that are broken. Susan smiled. I'm thankful for this crazy, loud, imperfect family that somehow always finds its way back together. David looked directly at me. I'm thankful for fathers who are brave enough to admit when they're wrong, and who love their children enough to change. Jennifer squeezed David's hand. I'm thankful for being welcomed into a family that clearly loves each other deeply, even when they're figuring out how to show it. Then it was my turn. I looked around the table at all these people. My children, my grandchildren, the woman who'd become like a daughter to me, the woman who'd brought joy back into my son's life. I'm thankful, I said, for the hardest lesson I've ever learned. Emma tilted her head. What lesson, Grandpa Frank? That love isn't about holding on tight to how things used to be. Real love is about letting the people you care about become who they're meant to be, and trusting that there will always be room for you in their lives if you love them the right way. The table was quiet for a moment, and I saw Michael wipe his eyes. And, I continued, I'm thankful for granddaughters who are wise enough to remind their grandfathers that families should never lie to each other about birthday parties. Emma giggled at that, and the moment of solemnity broke into laughter. As we ate dinner, I watched my family interact with each other. David and Michael were talking like the friends they'd been as kids. Rebecca and Jennifer were discussing their kids' schools and finding out they had more in common than either had expected. Susan was telling Emma about what Florida was like, and Emma was begging to visit. It wasn't perfect. There were still careful moments, still topics that required gentle navigation, but it was real, and it was ours. After dinner, while the women were organizing leftovers and the kids were playing outside, David and Michael and I found ourselves on the back porch. Dad, David said, thank you. For what? For calling me back. For listening. For not making this weird or awkward. Michael nodded. Dad, I know this wasn't easy for you, admitting that you needed to change some things. I thought about that. Boys, you want to know the truth? The hardest part wasn't admitting I was wrong. The hardest part was realizing I'd been so focused on protecting your mother's memory that I'd forgotten to protect our actual relationships. What do you mean? David asked. I mean, I was so afraid of you forgetting her that I kept comparing everything you did to what I thought she would have done. But your mother wouldn't have wanted that. She would have wanted me to support you, to trust you, to let you live your own lives. Michael leaned back in his chair. Dad, we're never going to forget Mom. She's part of who we are. But we needed you to let us be ourselves too. I know that now. And I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Emma push Madison on the new swing set. Dad, David said eventually, I have something to tell you. I tensed up, old habits dying hard. Jennifer and I are getting married. My first instinct was to ask if he was sure, if he'd thought it through, if it wasn't too soon. But I caught myself. David, that's wonderful news. She makes you happy, doesn't she? He smiled. She does. She really does. Then I'm happy for you, both of you. We were wondering, David continued, if you'd walk her down the aisle. Her father passed away a few years ago, and she doesn't have anyone else to do it. The request hit me like a gift I hadn't expected. You want me to walk Jennifer down the aisle? We both do, if you're willing. I looked at my youngest son, This man who'd forgiven me for not being there when he needed me most, who was now asking me to play an important role in the next chapter of his life. David, I would be honored. As the day wound down and people started to head home, Emma found me in the kitchen, helping Rebecca with the dishes. "Grandpa Frank," she said, "this was the best Thanksgiving ever." It was pretty special, wasn't it? Are we going to have Christmas together too? All of us? I hope so, sweetheart. Would you like that? Yes. And Grandpa Frank? What's that? I'm glad you came to my birthday party, even though it was scary at first. I dried my hands and knelt down to hug her. Emma, coming to your birthday party was the best decision I've made in a long time. It taught me something very important. What? It taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is show up, even when you're not sure you're wanted. Because families are worth fighting for. Emma hugged me tight. I love you, Grandpa Frank. I love you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. As I drove home that night, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. It had started with a lie about a canceled birthday party and a grandfather who felt like he was losing his family. It had involved hurt feelings, difficult conversations, and the humbling experience of admitting I'd been wrong about a lot of things. But it had led us to this, a family that was stronger, more honest, and more loving than it had been in years. I thought about Martha and what she would think of the man I'd become. I think she'd be proud, not because I'd been perfect, but because I'd been willing to change when change was needed. And I thought about Emma and the family she was growing up in now. A family where people told the truth, even when it was hard. A family where mistakes were acknowledged and forgiven. A family where love meant supporting each other's growth, not trying to control it. As I pulled into my driveway, I realized something that filled me with more peace than I'd felt in years. I wasn't just Emma's grandfather anymore. I was part of a family that was building something beautiful together, one honest conversation at a time. And that, I thought as I looked up at the stars Martha and I used to watch together, was the kind of legacy worth leaving behind. You know, after everything I've been through, I'd do it all over again. Tell me, did this story make sense to you too? And let me know, what city are you listening from in this big world of ours?